I can talk using military terms. I published again in 2018 in the Bessa Institute. What are you going to read? You're going to read it out to us from cover to cover? No, 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 no. Look at Bessa, look up Busa, and I talked about it in this article. Something very interesting is happening here. I've been focusing on this issue for many a year. I think I understand warfare. I've studied warfare for many years, and also claim again IDF that when the big war in Ukraine broke out, IDF didn't study it because wars are the basic state of humanity. Well, really, wars are the default of humanity? Absolutely. In between, there are some recesses. You said we'll live on our swords forever. It's not only the Jews; it's everybody. Oh yes, the Jews are the only ones who don't understand it. The British fought in wars, since Adrianus, the Romans, and also in the Ukraine. The Australians fight everywhere, by the way, because peace is something fragile and it's something temporary. The default, human default, is war. Definitely to the Palestinians and, all sorts of people all around us. I think the basis of their motivation to fight with us is inter alia, because of Ali Carmen's idea that they, I think you have to learn about Abdallah Azzam and some of the other ideology. What Abdallah Azzam did, by the way, to the radical world, and nobody studied this person, by the way. Abdallah, again, was from Khila al-Khartia, next to Jenin. From 1960, when he went to the Fatah, I'm not going to tell his story. He went to Afghanistan. He understood the Mujahideen, and from that time, everyone, all those people around us and people fighting us, again directed by Iran, is all because of faith and ideology. And Lawrence again, and Nasser. I mean, they wanted to unite all the Arab nations. I mean, that was already on the basis of nationalism. That was over in the previous century. That came crashing down. It's now on the basis of faith or theology, and I think what unites the Shia and the Shu'an, again, this is all under the direction of Khomeini. When he created the Al-Aqsa Day, and the last, last Friday of the Ramadan, he created a situation in which, Al-Quds, Al-Aqsa is more important than Mecca. And it's all for the purpose of doing away with Jewish sovereignty. Now, again, the basis of God is a jihad. In this, again, in contrast to Cloudish, who says that the default or the basis of war is some sort of, again, continuing the policy in different ways. Meaning when policy comes to a dead end, you make war, then you go back to policy. In Islam, it's exactly the opposite. The policy is the continuation of war using different means. Meaning, wow. Yes, I want to say that, yes, I am very close to them in their perceptions, in their ideologies, but in a moment, let's not deviate. What is the interesting point here that I wish to stress? I think a new type of war was created in the world. We have not yet studied it. I think in all the different analyses, those that are considered to be experts, not necessarily. I'll explain why they're not experts and why we shouldn't rely on them at all. Who? Our major generals? Yes. I mean, our major generals don't know anything. Is that what you're saying? They don't understand warfare. They don't understand war. Just like a neurosurgeon doesn't understand medicine in general, maybe, because he's such a specialist. He focuses on the micro. He doesn't understand the macro, and he doesn't understand sometimes that sanitation in the hospital is what makes people die. So when I talk with Ami Ayalon and many other, majors, they start quoting Amos Oz, but I talk in military terms. I say, look at this new warfare. Look at the underlying terms. Your ideology of separation is based on the 6-day war. It's like basing yourself on the, again, splitting of the Red Sea. It's not going to come back again. Everything is different now. Our enemies made themselves compatible to new types of warfare, and we have to understand that some of those conceptions no longer exist. So, what I'm trying to say is as follows: good fences make good neighbors, right? That's an expression. That's rubbish. It's rubbish. What? We had no fence in Gaza? we were at the fence. I don't think you were at the fence. It's a huge wall. It's a huge wall. Billions were invested in that wall. Now, 80% of the IDF investments was in defense. Yes. Just like, yes, the splitting of the Red Sea. It's written in the verse, and the waters were like great walls on either side of them. And I called it a deception. I called it, again, some sort of a political, I called it a security border, again, which is, again, camouflaged like a military one. The truth, it's really political, meaning when Dennis Ross goes to that wall, goes to that fence, and he says, great, it smells like a fence, it looks like a fence. Yes, it's a border. And it shouldn't be the border, because the state of Israel, we cannot defend itself from this fence, which is that separation wall. No, and also not from the coastline. There's no, again, conditions for defense, because that fence that we built in the Gaza Strip is what gave them the ability to, again, reorganize into a proper military with surveillance, with tunnels. It would not have happened if we were there. What is the other model? It's the Judea, it's a Miriam model, meaning the separation that, again, was tried by Rabin, A, B, and C territories, is a hybrid separation. So much better, by the way, to go into, again, Nablus at night. The commander decides, you go, again, 5 minutes from Shekarnei Shomron or Har Bracha, you go in. And again, to go into Beit Hanan before the 7th of October, then you need an entire cabinet discussion in order to take such a decision. The second assumption says
that after we withdraw, it will be easy for the state of Israel to decide to go out to war if things get out of control, because there's a consensus, because we did what was expected of us. The second foot, of course, that collapsed. Look how the state of Israel can't go to war in Lebanon for so many reasons. Not because we don't have intelligence, because we can't, because it's a different country. The third leg says the IDF is so superior that it will arrange things like in the 6-day war within a few days, and then they will have a party in Tel Aviv. That's ridiculous. The fact that the IDF hasn't been able to finish off Hamas in 3 months, it's not because it's weak, it's outstanding, but because there is a system that has been created here that is very difficult to defeat, and the same situation exists in Lebanon. In Lebanon, we have complete separation. Why are they continuing? I'll just tell you how crazy this is. Chaim Ramon said it in 2006 before the Hitkonsut convergence. It completely collapsed. We have false promises. We have terrible enemies. Hezbollah is a much worse enemy, 7 times worse than Egypt. And Egypt has a huge army. And the last assumption that crashed is that after we withdrew, we'll have international legitimacy to go out to war. Ask the people in Gaza, the soldiers in Gaza, if that is indeed the situation. That was, of course, very wonderful to hear, because as a mother of soldiers, no one will do the work for us. We'll have to do it for ourselves. Like in the Bible, we'll live with a sword in our hand.